Hi, everyone. Today we are going to focus on two different temperaments, NT and NF. So this is going to be a quick rundown of our ENTP, ENTJ, INTP, and INTJ friends, and then our ENFJ, INFJ, ENFP, and INFP friends. So this is half of the Myers-Briggs types here, but these folks are all intuitive types. And believe it or not, that's only around 25% of the human population. These are folks who are forward-thinking and abstract. They want to change the world, not just live in it. One temperament is all about improving world systems and knowledge, while the other is all about developing people. They both use their creativity and innovation to ponder the what-ifs in life. Mark and I will give you a quick rundown of these 8 types, and if you are an intuitive tuning in, I think you're going to find some validation and ideas for you to pursue in your life. And please, if you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the new Myers-Briggs Question Corner. I'm Edith Richards.
And I'm Mark Maffey.
And we're here to answer your questions about all things personality and all things Myers-Briggs.
From college to careers to relationships, personality is the key to finding the right fit.
Hey, listeners, and hey, Mark. So here we are in our 3rd episode of talking about temperaments. We've talked about both the SJ and SP types, and they make up the majority of our population. So we wanted to talk about our intuitive friends in this one episode, kind of to consolidate things. So, Mark, how about we get right into it?
I like it, Edith. I think this is something that can be really, again, beneficial. We're talking about more than half of our population has these particular types. And I think I'd love to really get into it. You know, one of the things I was thinking about and something I want to do before we get into the types, I just wanted to share a quick story about the value of knowing your type. Since I've been doing this podcast, I've been sharing some of the MBTI information with my brother, who I currently live with. He has a totally different personality type than I do. So he's an ESFJ. I can't seem to get rid of the ESFJs in my life, right? But anytime I'm going to disagree with him on something, he always preemptively says, I know this might sound a little J of me, but when we are leaving for Jamaica, I like to put things in my planner. So do you have this stuff available? And my response is normally like, oh, bleep, 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 my bad. I totally forgot to book the flights. His response is like, my blessed peas. He's like, these are my peas, always late. So he understands my personality type, and he almost understands me with that. And if it was something that was important, he would do it. So for instance, the bills, he does the bills, right? Because it's important. But a trip to Jamaica that's 9 months in the future, I feel like he can ask me 6 months in advance in order to help that, right? And so that's really, really important. So in turn, he'll say stuff like, I know this might sound a little S of me, right? Our sensors, but can you tell me what your current plan is for your vision that you have? Because I always have plans. I always have plans, possibilities, what can happen. And he's always trying to keep me grounded by just being like, what exactly are you going to do tomorrow for that, right? It just makes me realize how powerful knowing personality types are, right? And how you can easily diffuse certain interactions just by having the superpower of understanding type. So I just thought that was funny, but very, very helpful for us as we go through this MBTI understanding journey.
Yeah, that is hilarious, Mark. And it's not just that it's funny, but I'm going to go out on a limb and take it as a compliment. To me, there is no better compliment than when someone takes someone else's teaching or insight and applies it to their own life, especially their personal life. And I like to think your brother is learning from your experience too.
Yeah, it's just really helped our relationship. It's something that's very valuable for us. And we understand that we're different. We understand that we also have a lot of similarities. We're both feelers. So we know that we need to take some time, discussions about our lives. He knows that he'll be able to get a fully well thought out, empathetic answer to some of the issues that we have. And so by understanding it's really, really helped us really have a really, really solid relationships. A lot of times we'll say this, like we'll say we have better relationships than marriages, right? And I think it's primarily because like we really understand each other and we choose to be considerate in those situations. So, but anyways, enough of the mathy household, right? I know we've got a lot to get into. We've got 2 more temperaments and 8 more personality types left. So Edith, why don't we start with the conceptualizers, right? The ENTJs, the ENTPs, the INTJs, and the INTPs. Let's start with the ENTJs.
Okay, so let's get into it here. I really like that we are starting with our ENTJ friends. These folks are natural born leaders. They are confident. They are often quite charismatic and determined. I read somewhere once that ENTJs cannot not lead. And that's certainly true for every ENTJ I've ever encountered. They need to be in charge. And to their credit, they're usually good at it. They have a long-term, often strategic focus. They get things done and they get results. They do need to remember, though, that people are not pawns. So they may handle their emotions poorly and they may come across as arrogant and pushy or even ruthless in extreme circumstances. And they may be intolerant of others who are different.
What are some pieces of advices that you would give to some of these ETNJs? Like, what are some things you think they should be careful with or watch out for?
So the ENTJs I know they're not idle people. They are constantly doing things to achieve their goals. And they may have too much on their plates and they may stress themselves out as a result. So I'm thinking about my cousin, for example, because she's an ENTJ and she has 3 jobs. She has a busy full-time job on Capitol Hill. She has a part-time job as a tour guide, and she also has a small culinary business. And somehow she manages to excel at all of these things. So whatever ENTJs tend to do to set their minds to, they end up doing.
These are the individuals I need in my group. Like, I need these individuals that are willing to multitask and get things done. I think that's impressive. I look up to them. I cannot do that, but like I really look up to their ability to do those things and to also understand, like, not because they're not me means that there's something wrong where they can't get that done. Like you said, they get it done.
Yeah.
So we got to understand that they're individuals, that's how they are wired and they're good at it. So I love it. All right, let's talk about our ENTPs.
Okay, so ENTPs, these folks are innovative and clever. I think those are the 2 best words to describe ENTP types. They are great conversationalists. They love to debate. They're curious about the world around them, and they tend to get things very quickly. So they're often very quick-witted. They love a challenge. They will jump right in. They'll adapt very quickly along the way. One thing about ENTPs, though, they do not like to be boxed in. They don't naturally follow rules and standard operating procedures. They do like to push the limits. They're also much more keen to focus on exploring a new concept or an idea than actually doing it and achieving it and making it a reality. They tend to get bored easily. So these qualities can make it hard for them to fit into a lot of corporate type structures. ENTPs, therefore, are often well suited to entrepreneurial work or less conservative work environments. most work environments and most like types of corporate settings are much too stifling for the ENTP creativity.
Yeah, I feel like I have some friends that are like this. And I love as you're explaining this, I'm thinking about like the people that I know that tend to fit in this general area, not typecasting, but again, giving me a little bit more self-awareness of why they might be acting that way. Like the quick-witted and not want to be tied down into different structures. I can see that's a P, right? Not necessarily a J.
Right,
And so
right.
I think that's really, really important to understand. Like sometimes I feel like these individuals, like they feel like they need to be the smartest person in the room, like a little bit, right? And then have the nerve that when I make a smart comment, they come back with a sarcastic comment. Like, I don't appreciate that, right? But that's my F that's speaking.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
understand why that's the case. But yeah, like what are some things that they need to look into, or some things, maybe some like particular jobs that they might do?
Yeah, the entrepreneurial spirit again. I believe a lot of our great inventors were ENTP types just because of their unique talents. And also, ENTPs tend to be really funny, very funny people, great senses of humor, sarcasm, as you mentioned, lots of sarcasm, and comments that not everybody would get straight away. And I think that's all part of the fun for this personality type.
That's great. What about those INTJs?
Okay, INTJs. These are some of the most strategic people out there. They are not fooled easily and they make deep observations very quickly. They are also constantly learning and learning to improve. So, one of their favorite sayings is, "How can this be improved?" So, that's a double-edged sword, of course, because we want things and people to get better, but we don't want it to seem like there's this never-ending quest or journey. And that's something INTJ types need to be careful of, these perfectionist tendencies that nothing is ever good enough. On the other hand, INTJs can be incredibly misunderstood. At their core, they are masterminds. And I like to say puppet masters. They love to pull strings without other people being aware of what they're doing. They are introverts, definitely not the most social people. In fact, most INTJs I've known tend to avoid social settings, especially if there's a lot of idle chit chat going on. But they do form deep relationships with a small, select number of people. And usually these are people they find intellectually stimulating. And they're going to show their emotions only to those select few. Another thing about INTJs, they crave autonomy and competence in everything. They want a world that's logical and orderly, and they may use some possibly manipulative strategies to get what they want. They can be seen as callous and insensitive, but also wicked smart. And they are also one of the rarest personality type.
Do they also come with the Boston accent too, with the wicked smart?
Oh,
Do they bring that too?
hey, I probably.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that. Really, really good description. And again, one of the things that I'm doing as I'm learning more about MBTI is picking out what are the particular preferences that are coming out there, right? Like the intuition about the whole idea of like how can things be improved, right? But also maybe the masterminding might be a little bit of that T speaking, because they may not really necessarily, like the most important thing is getting things done, not necessarily how this person might feel about it at the end, but were we able to accomplish things? So I think it really, as you go through these things, audience, think about like what preferences are these things speaking to? Because I think it can help you in your life as you're starting to see what are the things what type of preferences is coming through this individual as you have that conversation. And it really will help you not only in your self-understanding, but also helping them understand themselves too. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And last of the conceptualizers, and I think that's a really, really good word for what we're explaining, conceptualizers. I'm starting seeing the common theme. We talked about this being like their area, their country, right? This is the conceptualizer country. And I'm starting to see that common theme in all of these. What about the INTPs?
Yeah, so INTPs. So like our INTJ types, INTPs are also very autonomous. They don't like feeling like they're being controlled. So some traditional jobs and work environments, it can be hard for INTPs because of this, but they'll typically do very well in places that respect their independent nature. With that said, INTPs pride themselves on being different. They do not care much for rules and social norms, and they can come across as overly blunt as a result. They also love to learn. They are apt to go down all sorts of rabbit holes in pursuit of something they're interested in. And in doing so, when they do this, they tend to become oblivious to the rest of the world. They spend loads of time thinking about systems or whatever it is that fascinates them. They are not really interested in attaining a goal per se, but they are very interested in finding the truth. And they take that truth very seriously. Knowledge is everything to an INTP. Relationships aren't usually very easy for this personality type either. They are not really the best at being emotionally vulnerable. And then talk about being misunderstood. So their inner minds are very accurate and complex, but they often struggle to get those ideas across to other people. Part of them craves building rapport and feeling and being with others, but they are often plagued with this self-consciousness or shyness. On the other hand, if you are looking for a creative genius or someone to spot an inconsistency, you definitely want to look for an INTP type.
Wow, it seems like there's a lot with our INTPs. And as you were speaking, I didn't necessarily feel like there was a friend of mine or anything like that that really stuck out to me. Like, do you have friends that are INTPs?
Yeah, I do. I have a few INTP friends, and let me just say that all of them are nerds at heart. And I say that with all the respect in the world. They all work in different fields, but they are all masters at whatever it is that they do.
That's awesome. Again, get those individuals in my group. I think, we talk a lot about, how these opposites complete, right? And I'm good in one thing. This other personality type is good at other things. We can come together with both of our strengths and make something better, right? And reach the potential and that sort of stuff. And I think sometimes when I look at individuals in my group, I kind of don't want the same individual because I think that can be very unproductive. I need individuals who are different than me in order to get that done. And so, although we're very different, me and the conceptualizers, I'm more of an idealist. Although we're different, I need them in order to be successful. So I love that. I love how we're getting to that through these conversations and your description of these types.
Yeah. I mean, I love all my NT friends here. They're great people. And like you're saying here, I love having them in my group.
So we're going to save the best for last. Just kidding, guys.
Right on.
whatever your particular preferences were and your types, those were the best too, as well. Like, it's not just this, but it is not ironic that the last one is the idealist, right? And both Edith and myself share types within this country. We're going to really get into this. Some of you guys may already, if you've been following the podcast, there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about with ourselves, but we want to also bring in the other two as well. So our idealists, which I feel is a perfect title for this country of types, we're going to talk about the ENFJs, the ENFPs, the INFJs, and the INFP. So, can you tell us more about, let's start with the first one, the ENFJs.
Yeah. So first, if I may, I want to mention just a key difference between NT and NF types. So both are focused on possibilities and patterns, but NTs prioritize objective analysis, logic, and truth. NFs, on the other hand, prioritize possibilities for people. focus on connecting with others. So let's start with our ENFJ friends. So these folks tend to have a lot of charisma, great interpersonal skills. They are natural leaders, especially in terms of motivating and fostering growth in others. They prioritize group harmony, and their initial reaction is to harmonize with everybody around them. So much so, oftentimes, that they may absorb the emotions of everyone around them in real time. Now, as judging types, they're going to function at their best if they have a solid plan in place. And as feeling types, they're going to base their decisions primarily on how it will affect other people. Specifically, they're going to want to avoid impacting other people in a negative way. So as a result, they are often the peacemakers in their families or their teams. They also will tend to get angry about a lack of empathy or inconsiderate behavior, and they may very quickly jump to the defense of a friend or a coworker who's on, for example, the receiving end of some aggressive or demeaning behavior, and they may yell at the perpetrator. I've seen this happen. And then almost immediately they're going to feel guilty, and they may use their communication skills to try to smooth things over. They also put a lot of thought into their appearance. They're very conscious about how others see them. They can be proud and also perfectionists. And so on the outside, they may look like they have it all, but they may be struggling internally. They are apt to excel at one thing. If they're excelling in one area, they may be disappointed in other areas of their lives. And due to their focus on everyone else, they may forget to take care of themselves. But overall, ENFJs are people you can count on. They have genuine interest in other people. They tend to make great politicians and social workers and even executives.
I'm thinking that this sounds like an individual that I'm doing a podcast with. Is there a possibility that this is your type?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I think some people have typed me either as an ENFJ or an ENTJ at work. And I'm definitely, when I'm doing this podcast, I am honing my work persona. But no, I mean, most naturally at my core, I am an ENFP type.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What are some tips, especially since you're talking about yourself, right? Like, what are some tips that you would give our fellow ENFPs?
Yeah, so if we get into the ENFPs here, and we might as well just jump right into it too. So this is actually great fun for me because I get to talk about my own type. So we ENFPs put our hearts into everything we do, if, and that's the caveat here, if it's something that interests us. We are naturally optimistic. We may look like we're happy-go-lucky to the external world, but that doesn't mean that we're immune to depression or stress. We can get very stressed by negative people, mean people, and we can get depressed if we're alone too much, or if we're boxed into a job or a relationship with very little autonomy, and we feel like we're stuck, or if we're forced to work in an overly systemic or repetitive work environment. These are some of the things that kind of stress us out or get us down. We gravitate towards possibilities, and the more out of the box the possibility, the more exciting it is for us. We do not want to be stuck doing the same thing day after day. Monotony is one of the worst things that you can do to an ENFP type. We also gravitate towards work and tasks that make a difference in people's lives. I'd say that in our day-to-day lives, we need to motivate or inspire people. We tend to be the ones who lift others up and make people happy. And we're usually very successful at this because of our natural interpersonal skills. And we need a creative outlet. We need to be able to come up with some clever new solutions to problems. And this was most important to me. I think it's true for a lot of other ENFP types. We need to be our authentic, true selves. And yeah, I think this is the hallmark for most ENFP types, perhaps more than any other type. We need to be interested in a topic to feel authentic and therefore satisfied. If we are, there is really no stopping us. We will surpass any goal that's set. But if it's some arbitrary goal or someone else's special project, yeah, we'll check the box, but we won't really be invested. We need to be generating new ideas. We need to function with freedom and flexibility. And we need to have fun. We need to connect with other people regularly. So things like planning and mundane tasks. Yes, of course, these have to be done, but these aren't our areas of strength. We are prone to boredom if we're not living our own authentic lives.
I love that. I think, I feel like you lean towards feeling or living a more authentic life and being more yourselves. And this is something that we're trying to get accomplished through this podcast is by providing this self-understanding. How can you live your true authentic self? And it seems like if you're not living your true authentic self, that you would have an issue. Like you would have a problem. You wouldn't feel not whole. Would I be correct in that?
Yeah, I definitely. But it's not to say that we can't do it. We can do it, but I think we would feel very much like we're sacrificing some part of ourselves. And I guess anybody can do that for a short amount of time, but then you think about doing it over and over again every day. And I think that could really get to us more than a lot of other personality types.
And I think you've mentioned too, Edith, how sometimes you struggle in your work tasks because they're so inauthentic to who you are. And I think that although you've done a tremendous job, like you've done great work, I feel at times because you're not really living out your true authentic self, that's maybe why outside of work, you want to do these podcasts or you want to do coaching and that sort of stuff, because that allows you to live your authentic life even more. So even though you may not be getting it at work, you're going to try to find to get it somewhere else, right?
Yeah, bingo. And I mean, it's definitely not to say that I don't get it at work. I mean, I'm very fortunate in my job. I do get to bring some of these skills to work. And those are great days when I can do that and connect with other people, make a difference to other people too. But yeah, I think I'm not the only ENFP to say this, that we do need a creative outlet, especially if, we're working in more of a corporate setting or more traditional work environment.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, let's go on to our next one. Our INFJs. Tell us a little bit more about them.
Yeah, so INFJs are the rarest of the 16 Myers-Briggs types. And because they are so rare, other types may have difficulty relating to them. Many INFJs feel misunderstood and may have felt lonely. And as a result, they may isolate themselves or feel down in the dumps because they feel so different. These folks are visionaries. They have original ways of looking at the world, and they're innovative, and they're quickly able to size people and situations up accurately. They have this internal picture of how they want their work to contribute to the greater good, and they can be excellent motivators to others on their teams. They are naturally caring, empathetic people, but they may have difficulty expressing these emotions, especially at large social gatherings with strangers. INFJs take time to get to know people and to trust them. So mindless banter and small talk are exhausting to INFJ types, and they'll probably go to great lengths to avoid it. They are also very good at strategic planning and seeing future implications. They will do best working in non-competitive work environments where they can use their skills to create new programs that address current challenges, especially if these programs will benefit other people. They are not going to do too well in overly political or noisy or chaotic work environments, for example, or if they're forced to speak publicly in front of people with little to no preparation. Most INFJ types I know also have a deeply spiritual side, and this is a huge part of who they are. On the downside, they are perfectionists and they may easily get burned out in this quest for perfection. This may show up in interpersonal or professional squabbles with other people, for example. Most INFJs can handle most people up to a point, but if you get on their wrong side, watch out. They will cut you out of their lives without hesitation. Or if things are really bad, they'll blow up and that'll be the end of things. But it really takes a lot to get them to that point. And they'll give you a lot of cues before that happens. But it's up to you to decipher those cues. And they may not be easy to decipher for some other personality types.
Wow, that's interesting. And, like I've been mentioning in this podcast, I'm sensing and I'm seeing some of these different preferences jump out, right? The J's, their need for organization, structure, that's very important. The environment in which they interact and where they work is very, very important for them, right? So the J's is coming out of that. When we talked about the feelers, one of the things you mentioned was if you wrong a feeler, they will let you know, right? And so you hear a lot of that coming out of this type description. So I love that. And again, being able to see how these preferences are jumping out as we explain the types is really, really cool to see too as well. It helps you become better at spotting different personality types by understanding the preferences really well. So I think that's good. So as we say in Jamaica, I'm going to give you a little Jamaican accent here. Okay, in Jamaican, it's going to sound terrible because it's going to sound very American Jamaica. Fimmy time now. Okay, Fimmy time now. Okay.
Fimmy time now?
Fimmy time now. For those
Okay.
individuals who are struggling with that, that means it's my turn now.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Okay, that's
it's
like
my turn. So the 16th type, we've gone through 15. The 16th type is my type.
Nice.
Okay?
So that's a little patois there, right?
Yeah, it's patois, but patois, it's fine.
God. Okay.
It's fine, but it's great. But and then again, like I just love it because again, it's Fimmy time now, and that's something that we always do when it's somebody's turn. Fimmy time now. So you guys get to listen to Mark Matthews type. Go ahead, Edith.
All right. So last but certainly not least, and this is for you, Mark. This is the INFP. So INFPs have an inner set of core values that guide everything they do, from their decisions to how they interact with other people to work. INFP types prioritize living true to whatever their values are. And as a result, work for the sake of work, meaningless routine. This is one of the worst things for an INFP type. Being stuck in a work environment like this can cause them to be apathetic at their best and rebellious at their worst. This can also cause INFP types to devalue themselves. And this is why we don't see many INFP types in traditional or corporate work environments. These places tend to be very impersonal and overly political. And it's hard for INFPs to do what they love when they have to adhere to someone else's guidelines. They're going to see this as pointless or trivial. INFPs are creative people. And if their creativity is encouraged and they're allowed to work autonomously, they're going to do great things. They are naturally devoted to the people and things they care deeply about. They are loyal friends and partners. And like our INFJ friends, INFPs also tend to have these perfection tendencies, but this is going to show up differently. INFPs may spend so much time focusing inward and relying on their own inner resources, trying to get whatever it is they're working on to be perfect. And they, as a result, set these impossibly high standards to themselves. And then their projects might go unfinished, or they may be just unable to complete them for whatever reason. And then inside their heads, INFPs get frustrated and start questioning their abilities. Now, to the outside world, this may look like a lot of procrastination or, just not giving a crap. But it's a very different story inside the head of an INFP. But when they are at their natural best, INFPs are great empathetic listeners. They are natural counselors, and they love to help others. Every INFP I have ever met has some sort of creative or artistic talent or interest in the arts or music or something creative.
So well said. Perfectly describes who I am. And for those individuals who think that I just procrastinate, just take a journey in my brain, right? Look, it's a different story that's inside my head, right? And I think it's actually really, really important, not just for the INFPs, right? But for everybody. What you see is not always what you get, right? And what person might show, and we might judge an individual. Step inside their shoes. I know we call it empathy, right? Step inside their shoes. But I even like what you said. Walk in their head. See what their thoughts are. Gain a level of understanding, right? And when you get a level of understanding, you realize, oh, it's not procrastination. It's this, right? It's not that person is short-tempered. It's this, right? It's not because that person is a perfectionist. It's this. And I think it's really, really important for us to understand. So it brings up a kind of a greater point to how we interact in life in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it goes back to just not being careful of the assumptions that you make. Just use that as a way to have a conversation with somebody and show curiosity rather than judgment.
I love it. I love it. So yay, we got through all 16. It took us 3 episodes, but we got through all 16 of them. And I feel really good that everyone was able to get a brief explanation of their personality type and see kind of where they fit. I've even had fun looking at the Very Well Mind website on the psychology personality types and also the 16personalities.com to really gain some additional self-awareness on my personality type. I know that these pop type kind of websites that are fun to look at, kind of cool to observe, and that sort of stuff. But what are some other validated resources our audience can look at to get a deeper dive into their personality types beyond just the brief descriptions we gave them?
So, shameless plug here for myself, for the mid-career folks who are tuning in. I'd love for you to check out my other podcast series, Myers-Briggs for Midlife Career Changers. And this series focuses on career paths for each of the 16 Myers-Briggs type. And there's one episode for each type. So a couple of other sites that I like are Truity.com and Personality Max. Also, if you're very knowledgeable about or interested in the science behind the MBTI, check out Personality Junkie. The writers go into great depths talking about the cognitive functions.
I love it. So again, guys, don't depend on it because we don't have a lot of time, right? And so we're giving you brief descriptions. I think this would be a good family activity, a good couple activity, just to kind of go through some of these websites and kind of go through that. And as you're reading something that might describe you, your significant other might say, yep, that's you. Or your mom might be like, yeah, that's you. Like these things are really cool to be able to do that sort of stuff. So I think that's one thing for you to look at. And I think Edith, I'm a teacher, right? And I think I'm going to give you guys another homework assignment, and it's twofold. Okay, now that you know your personality type, be intentional in sharing your personality gifts and strengths to your environment. So every day, can you do one thing to intentionally share your gift to the world? Be intentional about that. Now that you know what your gifts are, how can you share your gifts to the world because they're needed? How can you share these personality strengths to the world? That's homework assignment, I guess, number 2, right? Okay, number 3 is with this knowledge we've shared about personality type, help those who you are close to find their personality type and then give them what they need. Okay, live out the platinum rule. So these are 2 specific homework assignments that I feel like if you use them, how much it is so valuable And it can be such a blessing, not just to yourself, but to others and also the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that, Mark. I love the homework assignment. And also, what a great way to wrap up this episode. So, folks, as you are tuning in, please think about how you can bring your gifts to the world and how you can help others do the same. And with that, I have one more favor to ask you all, and that's to please give us a share, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and leave us a comment so that we can continue bringing you great content. Mark, thank you so much for all your insights. And folks, we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Follow us on social media and your favorite podcast platform.
And please reach out to me on LinkedIn and on my website, atopcareer.com, for more updated content. While the Myers-Briggs and MBTI are trademarks of the Myers-Briggs Foundation, viewpoints expressed here are our own.